Hey everyone, and welcome to part 3 of our game dev tutorial. Today our main goal is to rotate the hero towards the mouse at all times. If you think of the keyboard input we did last time as one stick of the dual stick shooter, in fact the left stick, so it's moving, we will be doing the right stick today, which will be pointing at the mouse. That's pretty important for what we're doing, and that way we can fire objects around everywhere and kind of start to create more of a game. Right now we've just been creating base classes and whatnot, but in the next few tutorials we'll be adding actual game materials. Alright, the steps to do that is first we have to create a mouse class. I will be giving you the mouse class. It'll be in the provided materials down below in the description. We need to initialize the mouse class in main, just like we did with the keyboard. We need to edit basic 2D to add offset, which will allow for screen scrolling and all kinds of things. In this case, we need it for the mouse cursor. We don't need it. I want it, and it's going to be super helpful for things later, so we're going to add it today. And then we're going to overload our draw to include the origin as well, so that we can draw our mouse from the top left corner. Our base draws from the center, and 95% of things are going to draw from the center, but there are things that will need to draw from either the top left or bottom right hand corner, and you'll start to understand that as we go, so this will be very important moving forward as well. After that, we are going to add rot or rotation to basic 2D so that we can rotate it, and we have to edit its draw as well for that. You'll see that too. And then we're going to add speed to hero. So we want speed to be a variable for a few reasons. One, we can adjust it on the fly and everywhere that speed is used. And right now we're using in 4 places, one for each of the ASDW button pushes. Just change the variable once and it'll be good to go. And then also for buffs and debuffs that we may want in our game, speed then just gets a multiplier and we're good to go. We're going to add rotate towards to globals. I will be giving you my entire global file at the end of this, because this function is relatively long, and it's all based on geometry. It's not all that complicated. It's just long, and I don't want you guys to have to type it. So look for that as well in the provided materials area. Then lastly, we'll use the mouse position and rotate towards the function rotate towards to rotate the hero. When we're done with this, we'll have essentially both of our dual stick shooter inputs ready to go, and then we will be ready to start to add more fun things to our game. Okay, well, let's jump right in. First things first, we're going to add our mouse class, and then I'm going to go over it. So right into here in the input, we're going to add our mouse control. I will be providing this, so you'll just drag and drop it just like I did. Let's open it up and let's kind of go through it real fast. It's asking for some stuff that we're going to add to globals, so just bear with me for a minute. Let's do that first. In our globals file, we are going to need, and I'm going to copy paste these because I'm just going to provide them to you. We are going to need height and width right there. That's most of this stuff. And then get distance, which I forgot to mention in the intro. But this is literally just the square root of x1 minus x2 squared, y1, y2 squared. So plus that's a very, very simple algebra equation to get distance. It's called the distance formula. I call it get distance. Takes in 2 vector 2's to get it. Very simple stuff, but we need it for the mouse control. So alright, now back to our mouse control. We actually end up with 3 mouse states, and these actually could be different than they are, but for whatever reason I still have this one protected. I'm going to change that out just because I don't want you guys getting confused with that. So let's just move that, and then I'll save that for you guys as well. Anyway, you have new mouse, old mouse, and first mouse. Well, now you might ask, why first mouse? Well, when you're dragging something or deciding whether you're dragging something, knowing where you clicked first is important. And then you can get the distance from that and decide when you want to start dragging. Usually, 10, 15, 20 pixels from where you started your click. That way you don't have inadvertent drags happen, like 1 pixel or 2 pixel just because your heartbeat moves your mouse cursor 1 pixel. Anyway, that's an example of why you would need first mouse. There's actually other reasons too, but so it's a third state that we have. First mouse gets set when you click, essentially. All right, and then you have new mouse pose, old mouse pose, first mouse pose. The reason I have these is because they're vector 2s, and the entire program is made to run with vector 2s, and rather than have to constantly in your code be adding, quote, new vector 2 and then going from new mouse dot position dot x, you can just use these. It shortens your code. You actually don't need these. It just shortens your code, and it makes it nicer. You have draggings, which I mentioned before. This you're not going to use, nor are you going to use that, but we'll use these later. These will be used to bound your mouse into your game when it's in full screen. Like I said, we're not going to use them right now. And then this is for when you add zoom to your game. If you add zoom to your game, we will be adding zoom to the game eventually. This adjusted pose is where it's clicking based on the zoom, because you'll have your screen space, which is your literal pixels, and then you'll have your zoomed pixels, which are very, very different than your actual mouse position. Okay, constructor just sets them all, very simple, and then gets the first mouse. And that, let's just go to definition. There we go. New mouse pose. That's all it does. It's very simple. Get screen pose is, this will be more complicated later, but I just turned it to the most simple version, which is literally mouse.position.y. This is what you'd have to put in your code every time instead of just saying new mouse pose. So it's less than a third of the total width, and that's why I have it changed. I left the mouse wheel stuff in. We will use it later for zooming and stuff, so there's that. You have left click, which essentially is just test the new mouse's left button and see if it's pressed, and test the old mouse button's left and see if it's pressed. So at the point where the new mouse has pressed and the old mouse doesn't, that's a new click. And this is just asking if our position is a legal position for it to go. So basically, if it's greater than 0, and if it's less than the screen width, we just put the screen width in our globals. Same thing for Y. And then hold happens when they're both down, so both pressed. And release happens when the new mouse is released and the old is still pressed. So that's the instance where the click is released. These are all important. And right click has the exact same things. So you can test both clicks now. It's a lot of code, that's why I'm providing this file. But it'll allow you to detect clicks on both left and right clicks, even though for this tutorial we're not even going to be clicking. But we will be clicking in the very next tutorial, so it's important to have those, and I figured I'd add them all right now. Okay, so that is our mouse control. We also have an update old, I should mention that. And then I did mention, I removed all the first mouse stuff. I'll add that back in later. It's not important now, and that's why I removed it, but we'll add it back in later at a different point. Okay, so first thing we want to do with our brand new wonderful mouse control is we need to create a global for it, just like we did for keyboard. So public static MC mouse control. Again, you don't have to put MC in front of yours. You just call it whatever you want, and then I just call it mouse. And yay, we have the variable. In main, we're going to come in here and we're going to just say globals dot mouse equals new. Alright, MC control. So now we have our mouse, yay. We need to use it, or at least start updating it. So globals dot mouse dot update. And then again, globals dot mouse dot update old. Alright. Now our mouse is updating. Very simple, 3 lines of code. We went from instantiating it and to updating it, and that's awesome. Now, the issue that we first want to solve is that we want to be able to see our mouse. So because I don't believe any game engine shows you the mouse, but I could be wrong there, we have to create it. So what we'll do is we will create a basic 2D called cursor. And I will provide you with the cursor image. Let me grab it real fast. And that will go in... Ooh, let me create the folder. I like to be a little bit more organized. This is my miscellaneous folder. And we're going to... That's the PNG. That's not what I want. There it is. There's the X and B. But this also shows you what the cursor looks like. It's just a green triangle. Again, I'm not an artist, and I'm making all these materials myself at this point. So it points to the top left-hand corner, because that's where we're going to set the origin. And this will work for our purposes for now. Okay. So we have that. It's in there. Make sure that you come through and do content. Copy if newer. Won't work if you don't. Now we're going to make some changes to basic 2D to allow us to actually make this work. So we're going to jump in. We're going to add rotation because we're going to need it in a minute. So here's our rotation. So public float rot. I keep them short because it just makes the code much more compact. So I try to use the first 3 or 4 letters of something, provided that it makes sense still. And then we're going to add into here, we're going to say vector2 offset. And then our offset comes in directly right here. You may have wondered why there were parentheses here before. Well, I guess, yeah, you didn't need the parentheses. You could have just cast it to int, but now you actually need the parentheses. And obviously, I removed those because I wanted to go over this with you guys. So this allows us to draw the item or the image somewhere other than where its position says to be. And this is going to be really important for a number of things. In fact, it's actually relatively rare, except for on menus or something, that you're drawing something exactly where its position thinks it is. So this essentially gives you a relative position, and this gives you the shifted position in order to draw it. So like, let's say the screen shifts off to the left. Well, something that was here would be over here now. And you don't want to change its position because, A, if you shift the screen, you'd have to now change the position of everything in the entire game, which is pricey and leads to bugs. Pricey when it comes, or heavy, I should say, and leads to bugs. And you just, it's complicated. It's not something you want to do. So we create this offset that allows you to hand in the world's offset or any other kind of offset. In this case, we're actually going to hand the mouse position into that. All right, and then we are going to overload this here with another draw, and this includes origin. So origin goes here instead of the middle of the mouse or middle of the image. We will put in a custom origin. I have used origins top left, bottom right. I have used them offset in the middle in weird spots. There are times when you need to do this. I would say 95% of the time you have no need to draw it outside the middle, but there are times when you need to, and so this is a great function to have. Other than that, it's the exact same as the above. Look, I mean, character for character. Ooh, we need rot here. Ooh, that would have been bad. All right. So rotation needs to be put in there. Don't forget that right there. It's in this one. But it's character for character up until that point. So they're the same thing. This one just has the ability to change out origin. We're going to have this not happy with us right now. And the reason for that is because we just changed the function. So vector2 offset. We have to pass offset all the way through our game, so that's going to complain at us now. We'll build it. It'll complain in a second. There we go. And then this one, same thing, vector2, offset, offset. And now that will complain at us for the base level. And so for now, because we have no screen shifting right now, we're just going to say vector2, whoops, 2.0. That just gives you a 0, 0 vector 2. No big deal. And we build it, it should go fine. Alright, now that we've added basic 2D to have a new draw function, we need to use it. So right before you finish your sprite batch end, we're gonna say globals, we're gonna say cursor, and we haven't instantiated this, we'll do it in a second, dot draw, and then we have to hand it two things. We have to hand it the offset and the origin. So let's talk about the origin first. I mentioned we want it to be in the top left. New vector 2. Top left is 0, 0, as we went in before, as we talked about before in the last video. And then our offset is going to be the position of the mouse. So we're going to say globals dot mouse dot new pose, and then this will use the position of the mouse as opposed to creating itself a new variable. In this instance, this works, but I don't really want you guys to get into the habit of just using the actual variable. The reason for that is that you will get tons of bugs when you're referencing the same variable instead of creating a new one. So we're going to create a new one. Again, not necessary here, but I want you guys to get in the habit of creating the new variable. And then we're just going to copy paste this and use Y, because typing is not as much fun as could be. Alright, so now we've created a new variable. Now we could actually offset our cursor for something. That can be very annoying, but we could actually do it now. And then we need to instantiate our wonderful cursor. So we'll come in right here. We'll say cursor equals new basic 2D. Our basic 2D is here. So we have 2D, misc, and then I don't like to type it because one character wrong and it's broken. Alright, and then we need to add the position. So because we're using the mouse position as an offset, we can just say new vector 2 0 0. Okay, so that essentially is saying, oh, it's way up here, and then our mouse position will offset it down to where it's supposed to be. And then our dimensions for our cursor, and you guys can use whatever you want here. I'm going to use, I think, maybe 28 by 28. So that will draw a cursor now on our screen. Let's see if it, as long as it builds, let's just take a look and make sure it's working. So here's our thing. There's our cursor. Our guy still moves around just fine. But at least now you can see the cursor in the game, which is helpful. Okay. We have our cursor in. Awesome. We added rotation to basic 2 already, so we need to add speed. Our first hero specific thing. So float, public float speed. And then I'm going to set speed equals to 2 in the constructor, so he's going to move twice as fast as he used to. And then everywhere it says 1 here, we are just going to paste in speed. I missed one. There we go. Okay, so now we move based on this variable to make it properly afloat. We'll do that. And that will allow us to change this out later. And it's helpful, because again, we'd have to change it in 4 spots instead of 1. And let's take a quick look at what we're doing. Speed hero. Okay, so it is rotate towards time. And that's in globals. Again, I'm gonna copy paste this. Excuse my incorrect speech. Alright, and what this is essentially geometries SOHCAHTOA. Let me try to explain it a little bit. So let's get a new, doesn't matter the size. All right, let's pretend for a second that we're trying to pretend that's a right angle, right? Okay, so we want, our character faces up to start with, right? So we want the rotation between its up position and where our mouse is pointing. Let's pretend this is our mouse cursor. Okay, so we want this angle. Now, standard geometry is going to get us this angle, which would be this angle here. So we need to know which quadrant it's in. So you're going to see 4 if statements in a minute here, and they're based on the quadrant. So we would get this angle from our right angle, and we need to add the rest of the angle to it in order to get the entire angle. Maybe there'll be more explanation needed, but essentially this is where we do the geometry portion to get that first angle. There it is. It's the arc sine of sine theta, which we get here. And then you're going to have the quadrants. Remember I told you have to worry about the quadrants and you have to add to them based on the quadrants. These angles are added to fix the geometry things. Is there a better way to do this? Probably. I wrote this probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. So it works great. It's not heavy, and I don't plan on changing it. But it works great. You'll see it work in a second. If you know a better way to do the math, great, go for it. I am good at math, very good at math even. But once it's working, if it's not heavy on the system, I don't come back and fight with it. So this is a working rotate towards function, and there you go. All right, now that we have the rotate towards, we need to go into hero, and we need to say rot, because that's our rotation, equals globals dot rotate towards. And notice it takes in 2 vectors, but I'm just going to close it up real fast. And then we're going to have position, and then we're going to have new vector 2, and this is globals, whoops, dot new mouse, globals dot mouse dot new mouse dot x, globals dot mouse dot new mouse y. Okay, so now we are rotating the character towards the mouse. And that should work. Let's build our program with F5. Let's bring it over, and then you'll notice our character is constantly rotated towards the mouse. So this is the right stick of our movement, and this is the left stick of our movement. And notice if I rotate him around without even moving the mouse, it's always rotated towards the mouse. So if I wanted to shoot over here, eventually I go click, 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 get him, click, 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 whatever, right? However it is we're shooting, we can now do it towards the mouse at all times and kill our baddies once we put them in. So it should be pixel for pixel, and notice if I bring it right up to the middle of his head, it goes right in the middle of his head. And that is the case at all times. Okay? That is the end of this tutorial. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys are getting the gist of it. I hope you guys are doing the programming part, because that is what I'm hoping to get you guys to learn. Eventually, once I get a little bit further and get enough of the engine together, I will put out the entire solution to you guys. But as of now, I'm making sure to give you the big source files and whatnot. If you guys are enjoying this, make sure that you hit the like button. Tell YouTube that you do like the content that's being made. That way other people see it, as well as subscribe so you can see the new videos that come out. Hit the notification bell, then that kind of double tells YouTube that you want to see it. I'll be honest, I don't really understand the algorithm, but neither do most people. And then there's Twitter and Facebook stuff. I'm trying to make sure I post that I've done these there too, so if you're looking to make sure you see the new videos when they come out, you may want to use more than one avenue. If you don't, great, but they're there for you guys. Past that, if you have a comment, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. I will respond. Maybe not that minute, but I will respond to questions to me. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. The next video, we will be adding projectiles. And depending on how long that takes, we might also do mobs at the same time. Otherwise, it'll be in 2 pieces. I'm not sure. It's going to depend on how long it takes to get everything working. All right, guys. Have a great day. See you later.